Welcome back to the Business of Biotech. I'm your host, Matt Pillar, and I have to tell you, we could be here for a while if I chose to give you a thorough rundown of my guest's resume, much less his curriculum vitae. Amolyt founder and CEO, Dr. Thierry Abribat, has done a lot since earning his DVM and Ph.D. in endocrinology back in the late 80s and early 90s. He started out at the bench as a scientist for Sanofi and the University of Montreal before co-founding Asana Labs, his first startup. Then he held C-level science positions with Theratechnologies and OPI-SA for about 8 years before jumping back into serial entrepreneurship. Headlong this time. It was in 2007 that he founded Amolyt Pharma 1. Then he founded Amolyt Pharma 2, which was acquired by Jazz. And then he founded Amolyt Pharma 3, which would ultimately become Amolyt Pharma, the company he currently runs. So let's start there, Dr. Abribat. Welcome to the show. And what's with all these different numerically designated iterations of Amolyt?
So first of all, very nice to meet you, and thank you very much for having me in today, Matt. I'm pleased to be with you, and thank you for this very nice introduction. Yes, in fact, I have been always driven by innovation. I'm a scientist by training. Have had really the passion of science and endocrinology in particular. And that's why at some point there has been another strong interest that emerged, which is entrepreneurship. And when I decided to found my first two companies, Amolyt Pharma 1 and 2, they were really driven by interest in moving project forward from bench to the patient. And they were all these first companies I had founded were driven by one single project each. So we really wanted to have a project moving from the science patent to patient and try to move it to show that we have benefit to the patient. And it was really my primary driver at that time, and I still have this very important interest for all the projects we are developing.
Mm-hmm. I've got to ask you too, real quick. Your background, your education, going way back to your doctorate and your PhD, veterinary medicine to endocrinology. What was what was going on back then in the young Thierry's mind?
You know, there are endocrinology disease in animals too, in pets, in cats, etc.
Yeah.
But the veterinary training is a very strong training in physiology, in some disease also, and very rapidly when I studied as a vet, I discovered that I was more interested by science than by practicing as a vet. I really fully respect that, but I wanted to have something new every day in my life, and so I made some internship in some pharma companies, at science organization and academic teams, and I really discovered that I was made for that. So I used my first training to develop my skills in science, and I decided that I needed to complete that. That's why I did a PhD in endocrinology, and then it was in neuroendocrinology. And I stayed a while in the academic space. I believe a sound scientific training is important. It helps me still today. I spend more time discussing with investors today than making science myself, I have to say. Yeah. But it's very helpful to select your compounds, to source your products, and also to give an impulse to your team, because it's very important to stay close to the project you develop, I believe.
Okay. You've also been, I see on your resume that you've been you've run TAB consulting. Is that correct for some time as well?
Yeah, this is my own personal company that have used at some point for consulting purposes. And that is also the company that is the real founder of the companies. All the companies I founded, I have been the first one through TAB Consulting to invest in the creation. So I put my money where my, anyway, as you say in the US. So yes, it has been, it's more like a financial instrument for founding my companies.
Gotcha. Okay. So what are the real roots for your the real roots of your penchant for founding biotechs? Many of these endeavors sort of overlapping one another. Where does this entrepreneurial drive come from?
Yeah, it all began with the real passion for innovation. There are people that like me who like to do different things every day, and especially focus on projects that are going to change something, right? And it happens that I'm more like a biologist and physiologist as training. So the biotech is some sort of obvious for me, and feeling that you can change a little bit the life of some patients is something that is very stimulating. And it has been really the beginning of everything on my decision to found my own companies that were more project driven. With this new company, Amolyt Pharma, it's a little bit different. Maybe I'm a little bit older. What is new? It's from what I've seen in other having some successful companies, is what you want to do when you're a little bit older, have a little bit of experience, is trying to do something that has an impact for the patient, but more globally an impact for the society, where you have some very nice examples in the US. Companies like BioMarin, Nutragenics, Jazz Pharmaceuticals, who have sold a company too, so I know them very, very well. I'm very impressed with what they're doing because they develop portfolio that goes to the market. And so this is larger companies at some point that have an impact, that create sustainable jobs, that have an impact for the patient and for the society at large. So I told myself, if I can do that, or at least make the beginning of that, I will be very happy when I stop working.
Yeah, well, good. I want to get into the patient and the specific candidates that you're currently offering, and targets. But first, I wanted to ask you about your headquarters arrangement. So you have headquarters in Newton, Massachusetts, and Lyon. Is that how you pronounce it in French? Lyon?
It's a very good pronunciation. This is a city, second city in France. This is midway between Paris and Marseille. So it's very close to the French Alps, close to the mountain. This is a city in France where there's a very decent cluster in pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Amolyt Pharma was built as a European company initially, has been built. So today the headquarters is still in France, in Europe. But very rapidly, for the kind of company I want to build, it is very important to have a presence in the US. So we have built this subsidiary in Boston, so in Boston area, so it's Newton. And there are several reasons for that. The first reason is that our lead program that is now clinical comes from the Mass General Hospital, which is the Harvard Hospital in Boston, very well known. And there are really fabulous scientists there who have designed the peptide, the product that we are developing. So we have licensed the technology and the product from them. So we wanted to be close because we have a research collaboration with them in parallel to the development of their compound. Boston is a very important cluster in biotech. You have everything. You have the hospitals, the science, the investors. So it's a very a lot of biotechs too. It's a very dynamic cluster. So you want to be close to that cluster, and So by having a team in Europe and in the US, we want to build the capability to implement global clinical trials as well. And to us, we are in the rare disease space. This is Europe and US. This is what we call ultimately those pivotal trials for registration. So we want to build a team there as well in the US. And finally, we want to, the kind of company we want to build, we want to be closer and closer to the US financial markets as well. It might happen that a company like us at some point get listed on the Nasdaq. So it might happen at some point. We want to be closer and closer to the US investors. This is a very important step for us to be able to finance ourselves for the kind of company we want to build.
The Business of Biotech is brought to you in partnership with Cytiva. Together, we're committed to helping the leaders of new and emerging biopharma companies navigate the financial, organizational, human resources, and regulatory waters you'll encounter on your way from discovery to the clinic and beyond. Check out a host of useful resources for biotech leaders at Cytiva's Emerging Biotech Accelerator at cytivalifesciences.com/emerging biotech. That's CYTIVA lifesciences.com/emerging biotech.
Let's get into the therapeutic itself. So just recently in Q4 2020, you dosed your first phase 1 patient with your therapeutic peptide AZP3601 for hypoparathyroidism. So two things there. First I want to ask about the indication, like why you target what you target, why you chose to go after the disease that you go after, and then an update. Just give us an update on that trial.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The hypoparathyroidism is a rare endocrine disease. Without going too much in science, this is a disease that approximately 80,000 patients in the US have and 110,000 patients have in Europe. So it's not ultra rare, but it's orphan disease. For us, what is important that in the overall goal we have for our company, we want to develop products that are prescribed by endocrinologists. We want to work for and with the endocrinologists. Ultimately, this portfolio, once the first product gets approved, could become a franchise. So it's important at some point, if the company has to deploy a commercial force, that the commercial force is dedicated to endocrinologists. And this disease is just the kind of disease we're looking to try to fulfill clinical needs, very important unmet needs. And the way to treat that disease is it's a PTH. This disease is a deficiency in parathyroid hormone. That is a very important hormone for the regulation of calcium metabolism. And the best way to treat a deficiency in PTH is to develop a Pth replacement therapy. And we found that the MGH, an analog of PTH that has been designed to fulfill the clinical need in those patients. The scientists at the MGH have spent the last 15 years to specifically design this analog. And at some point, they wanted to have an industry partner, a biotech like us, who has some experience in moving this kind of therapeutic peptide at the clinical stage. And they chose us. We are very proud of that, and we are collaborating hand in hand with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want to get into sort of the emotional and business angles of this next question, and that's what describe for our audience. Our audience is new and emerging biotechs, a lot of first-time founders, preclinical. What's it like to move your first program into the clinic? Starting from the regulatory perspective, and then kind of get into the sort of the I guess just the emotional aspect of it. Like what's it like to be the leader, kind of taking things into the clinic for the first time?
No, there is no doubt this is a major milestone for biotech. You have preclinical biotechs and you have clinical stage biotechs. In terms of valuation, the way investors see you, this is very different. You have moved one step up. So this is an important in the life of a company.
Mm-hmm.
Have to say the team that is working with me, most of the people have worked with me in previous ventures, so we have the experience. We have done that before, moving compounds like that from preclinical to clinical through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and even to approval. But it's when you build a new company and your first asset reaches the clinical stage, this is important. And because people, when you are at the pharmacology stage or non-clinical stage, you look at what you have, right? What is the effect of your product in animal models, etc. Once you're clinical, you look at what's going to come next. What are the next clinical milestones? When do you have data in healthy volunteers, in patients? And then at some point, when is your product going to be in pivotal trial or phase 3, and when is going to be approved? So we look at the future. And people around you do that also, investors, etc. So it's a total change in how the company is perceived. So it's an important milestone. So we closed the Series A financing last year because we are very ambitious. It was a quite large one. It was a $75 million Series A financing, mostly with very large European investors, some US investors too. And the first year was to build the team and bring the first asset, the first compound to the clinic, and this is what we have achieved. So now we are looking forward. We are looking for what's going to happen as next steps, and of course, the most important is to be able to get the results we expect to have in healthy volunteers and in the patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, big changes from a company sort of corporate structure standpoint all the way around. What walk us through what? Let's start with the manufacturing side. Like, what sort of CMC changes do you have to make as you transition from preclinical stage company to into the clinic?
Yeah, this is something you need to have in mind when you build a company, when you found the company, basically. The way we work at Amolyt Pharma, and we have worked in our previous companies, is that it's important to have the team first with experts. I guess this is more like an ancient time where people were building biotech companies with scientists who make very, very important discoveries, and at some point they are not ready to support the development. I think today what is important is to build a drug development team. So at Amolyt Pharma, from day one, we have hired CMC expert, non-clinical expert, toxicologist, regulatory expert, clinical development expert, clinical operation expert, because drug development is a multidisciplinary task, right? Project management is key, because there are a lot of parallel activities ongoing. Otherwise, it takes forever to go to IND. So you need to be organized as a drug development team from day one. And this is what we have done. So there has not been any change in the culture of the company, in culture of the team, because we have we claim to be a drug development company. This is our main job. What we do for a living, we develop drugs. And all the rest, the financing, the corporate, the business development, is here to support the drug development. And you're going to build value for your shareholders, build value for the society if you can deliver clinical milestones and bring some product to approval to the patient, etc. So this is our really a priority, largest priority, to have the right people. And then those people, they know the job, right? For CMC, you have to work with to select So we are a typical biotech. We don't internalize things. We don't build a manufacturing plant. We don't have a tox plan or whatever. We ultimately subcontract to providers. So for CMC, this is a contract manufacturing organization. For TOX, this is a contract research organization. But this is not very, I think everybody works that way in the biotech industry. But internally in the team, you need to have people who knows very well the job the providers are doing.
Right.
So, and so you have to think for CMC. You have to think from day one. Good GMPs, a good manufacturing practice. For TOX, good laboratory practice, etc. For clinical, good clinical practice. There's a good for every activity. Good practice for every activity. There are very well defined guidelines, and you just have to follow them.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure your drug development activity, where you need to be very strict and compliant, etc., really respect the scientific innovation you have. So you need to have the scientists. We have a CSO, etc., who constantly make sure that we are not deviating from the plan, which is the drug we have, the way we want it ultimately to be administered to the patient to improve, hopefully improve his condition.
Okay. Yeah. That's so you're saying you had, from day one, from the outset, you had the team assembled. I spend a lot of time talking with biotechs who, as they reach certain clinical milestones or, prepare for IND or prepare for commercialization, they make strategic personnel acquisitions, hires. You're saying you didn't necessarily have to do that in preparation for the clinic because the folks you needed to go into clinic were already there, or did you make any strategic personnel acquisitions?
No, of course, we continue to grow the team as the program develops, but the idea is to try to anticipate enough. I'm lucky to have at least a part of the team are people I have worked before with whom we have built some programs up to late stage development together in previous ventures in Canada and here in Europe. And those people, when I told them that I had founded a new company, some of them say, "Okay, I'm interested to come to work with you. It's a very interesting challenge." So they came with me very early on, and to me, this is a major asset of the company. This team, nothing replaces experience, right? When you have done it before, next time you're going to do it a little bit better, and if you have done mistakes in the past, you're not going to repeat them. So nothing replaces experience, because it's it's not easy. Drug development is a very challenging activity, and the best is to be able to hire people who have done it before.
Yeah.
In the US, you have a lot of people who have a lot of experience, because the biotech industry is so well developed and so old. I mean, it's been a while. You have invented the model of the biotech company. So
yeah, you opened yourself up to a follow-up question there when you said, each time you try to do it better and avoid the mistakes that you made previously. So you opened yourself up to a follow-up there around those mistakes. So what are, I guess maybe if you could share some stories from the trenches, what some of the challenges that you faced going into the clinic that you had to overcome and how you overcame them? Or mistakes that you made and how you corrected them as it were.
So I said you, so I mean I didn't say I, but maybe my English is not good enough. But no, I'm. It's a joke. It's not necessarily mistakes. Is when you develop a drug, time is the essence, and you have to play the game. You have investors, and yourself. You're impatient. You really want to move your product forward quickly, and the most typical, it applies to the pharma industry, is the most challenging part of a clinical trial is the recruitment of patients, right? So there are ways to approach and to entertain a dialogue with a relationship with investigators, with the hospitals. Our success depends on the quality of the relationship we build with investigators and hospitals, because this is in the hospitals that we discover if our product is good or not, right? And so you need to take the necessary time and have the right people internally to talk with this is endocrinologists for us, access to them. They are very busy because they spend most of their time to take care of their own patients, to establish, to present what we are doing, our science, why we believe our product is going to help their patients, and really to create a relationship with them. So this is key to be able to, first of all, to verify that your product, your rationale for product is good, is valid. So you need to have constant feedback from those people on your programs. And we have people internally, their time is really to establish the contact with these investigators. We have medical director, we have all those people who are very important for us to be known, our product. And then those people are going to help you to find the patients. Who are the best patients who are going to best benefit from your drug? Who are the patients who it's better that you don't treat them because there could be some safety concern. Also, this is in the best interest of the patient, make sure we position well our program. So this is key. So we are a small team, but it's important to be global and establish our presence and partnership with, I was telling you, we are working for and with the endocrinologist. This is very important. This is the best way to ultimately bring something positive for their patients. Mm-hmm. So this is for the challenge for clinical development. The challenge for the CMC, you have to select some CMOs that have, when possible, have a capacity to produce what you need to produce in time, because if your product arrives too late when you want to launch your clinical trial, you have a problem. CMOs who have been inspected by the FDA before, because they have there's less chance that you have a regulatory problem. The quality of your product is very important. A drug is two things. It's the product itself, so the quality must be outstanding, and there are very clear guidelines, and the indication. So this is what the product does to the patient. They're as simple as that, but the CMC sometimes is something that is a little bit less, especially in early stage clinical development. There's not enough investment sometimes in some programs, and then you pay that later on when you are late stage development and you want to have an approval. You have cut some corners, and then it's going to take you forever, or it's too late. Mm-hmm. So you need to invest. So you need to have the financial capability to invest in the top quality manufacturing activity, and then you have all the rest, the talks, etc. So everything you need to have anticipation to say, okay, what I'm doing is going to be successful. So for the next step, I need to be ready. The CMC quality need to be at this level, and you need to anticipate that.
Excellent. Yeah, that's some really good advice in there for the folks who are seeing this for the first time. So let's get back to the therapeutic and then wrap things up here as we run short on time. Why is it that you believe that your therapeutic approach is better than therapeutic approach for patients with rare endocrine and metabolic diseases is better than what's currently available on the market?
Yeah, it's a little bit all my life. I've done that many times. We are developing a specific class of compounds that are therapeutic peptides in rare endocrine disease, especially disease where the hormone is itself a peptide or a protein. So what we are doing, we for parathyroid hormone, for example, where we make a Pth replacement therapy for hypoparathyroidism. Basically, we are replacing what is missing in that disease. We have a second program that is preclinical, where we have a peptide that we have derived from a large protein called IGF binding protein 2. I don't have time to go in science, but this is a key mediator of the effect of leptin. And because of we know very well the effect of leptin, we can really position the product for specific therapeutic indications. Today, we are very pleased to have announced the acquisition of a third program. We have this collaboration with a Japanese company called Pth, and what we are going to develop so-called growth hormone receptor antagonists, so which are short peptides that are going to hopefully help those patients who have acromegaly. Acromegaly is too much of a secretion of growth hormone, and these are antagonists to the secretion of growth hormone to be able to improve the condition of those patients. So using therapeutic peptides is very often an advantage because you have more chance to succeed and have better safety if there is one condition for that: if you follow the rules of biology and physiology, so that you respect the way those peptides are physiologically secreted, for example, etc. So if you respect those rules, because you make replacement therapy or you inhibit the secretion of an hormone that is too much secreted, then you have more chance to have success, or less chance to have failure in clinical development, because you intervene really directly in the biology of the disease.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on that news release today. What other next big steps is Amolyt facing at this point? I mean, a lot going on, right? I mean, you're new into the clinic, phase 1, dosed the first patient just recently. Got a big news coming out today. What else is what else is in the oven at Amolyt?
I think we have reached our first, let's say, corporate milestone to have the first program clinical. This is what we announced recently. The new announce of today, we have added a third program that is early stage in our portfolio, is going to help prepare the next step. Our goal is to have at least 3 clinical programs by 2022, in the next 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. And the idea for us, a little bit longer view, is to build a portfolio of this kind of therapeutic peptides at the clinical stage, at various stages of clinical development, with one ready to enter phase 3 pivotal trial, and then another one in patient, another one in healthy volunteers in phase 1. So it's a balanced portfolio that will move forward up to approval. And I have learned something is that it's very good to have some compounds that are clinical, that are going to generate clinical data very soon, because this is very important that we are able to create short-term value for our investors. So this is very important. But I've also learned that you build even higher value for your shareholders when you have a view that is a little bit longer term. And again, our view is to build a company that could become a company that has a franchise in endocrinology. Mm-hmm. So we have both, because we'll have a portfolio with various stages of clinical development. We'll be able to offer our investors that continue to build the company to have short-term objectives, yet a longer-term view and vision, if I can say. Mm-hmm. And this is, I believe, the best way to build a company that can have an impact, as I was saying in the introduction.
Very good. Yeah, we'll be paying attention. And I've got to ask you. So you're, I described you as a serial entrepreneur as we got started today. Is Amolyt where you're going to stay for a while, or do you have some projects on the back burner, or can't you say? Is this something that can't
No,
be publicly?
anyway, if you ask me if this is the last one, I'm going to tell you yes, this is the last one, because this is a large work, and this one I've not seen the end of it yet. So I'm really I'm in a building mode, and the team that is working with me, we are in a building mode with these companies. The investors who support us are also in the building mode. So we are not thinking about exit or whatever. We're thinking about making it the most successful possible. Maybe it's going to take 3 years. Maybe it's going to take 5 years. I don't know. So then I will ask myself the question if I'm not too old at that time. I don't know.
Well, congratulations on your success to date, Dr. Abribat. We'll be keeping an eye on your company and wishing you well. And thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you very much, Matt. It was a very interesting discussion.
I enjoyed it.
Keep in touch. Thank you.
So that's Dr. Thierry Abribat. I'm Matt Pillar, and this is The Business of Biotech. We're produced by Bioprocess Online in partnership with Cytiva, which offers a trove of resources and guidance for emerging biopharmas at cytivalifesciences.com/emerging biotech. That's CYTIV as in Victor A.com/emerging biotech. Check that out. Check us out at bioprocessonline.com, and please subscribe to my newsletter while you're there. In the meantime, before you go, give us 5 stars if you like what you heard, and thanks for listening.